Chapter 40 to 46. I slowly opened my eyes and ignored the slight headache in my head and looked around where I was currently, just a rock in my size surrounded by the endless ocean. I assume that this rock is the last remnant of that island that we fought over. This piece of land very lucky, maybe her luck statistic is beyond EX. In any case, I measured the position of the sun in the sky and I concluded that the time was around 5 in the evening, and if I remember well then, before I started fighting against Mephisto it was 3.5 hours, and if we consider that I fought for 90 continuous minutes, I must be unconscious for at least 30 minutes. I touched my face and felt that the mask of illusion was still on me, which means that even if someone came here he did not find me and did not reveal my true identity as Victor Von Doom. Although I did not like to hide my identity and my accomplishments, something like hunting 6 sins and fighting a god is something that was not good to spread specifically, especially since many will seek to know how strong I am like this, and many may seek to steal my treasures. I raised my hand to the top and summoned me Rangaminiad towards me by linking curse that I had previously placed on it. With a spear. I sat on the rock and opened the game notifications list. After all I had just gone through, I expect a decent reward and a decent increase in strength. You've completed a main mission, Man Against God. Description: you have reached the end of the road, your journey to hunt sins is over, but there is one final enemy and one final battle awaits you. Now the answer will be determined for the eternal question, man or God. Subject: fight Mephisto, win, or die. Rating: perfect. Basic bonus, 20 million EXP. Bonus reward, Fairy Cloud. You have reached level 96. Fairy Cloud, a mythical clause said to be a compelling instrument for granting wishes, and although these are all lies, this clause can grant 3 small wishes. You killed a raging demonic dragon, you gain 650,000 EXP x 57. You have reached level 103. You can choose 3 new features. Monster Hunter 3 Advance to Monster Hunter V. Dragon Slayer C Advance to Dragon Slayer EX. Name, Dragon Slayer. Rank, EX. Description: at this level, this skill shows that you have made dragon hunting your only job. Not only are you getting a huge boost when confronting dragon-type enemies, but even anyone with a dragon character will feel terrified of you. You killed a god/evil of men Mephisto, you gained 40 million EXP. You have reached level 125. You can choose 5 new features. Total statistical points, 96. You killed a god, you got God Slayer A. Name, God Slayer. Rank, A. Description: this skill is super effective against divine spirits. A 2+ modifier is gained when attacking divine spirits, wraiths, and servants with the divinity skill. You killed evil of men, you got the title, Hero. Hero, a title given to people who not only saved humanity, but even the planet. Even if your brave deeds did not spread across the world, you will still be chosen to become a heroic spirit, although this requires your death first, a 10% increase in statistics when fighting enemies not human. You got Protection of the Ends of the World EX. Name, Protection of the Ends of the World. Rank, EX. Description: Victor, who possesses the holy lance that exists as an anchor to the planet, is receiving divine protection from the farthest ends itself. Other than mana and luck, all parameters temporarily rank up during battle. You have killed a god/evil of men, Mephisto, you can choose 3 skills and 2 noble phantasms. Skills: Authority of Beasts, EX. Independent Manifestation, EX. Self-Modification, EX. Item Construction, EX. Territory Construction, A+++. Clairvoyant, A+++. Magecraft, A. High-Speed Divine Words, A. Magic Resistance, A+. The Eye of the Mind, False, A+++. Memory Correction, A+++. Self-Replenishment, A+++. Against Mother Nature, A+++. Niga Pride, EX. Global Language, EX. Battle Continuation, EX. Conceptual Resistance, C. God's Immunity, A+. Illusionism, A+++. Divinity, EX. Monstrous Strength, EX. Angel Core, EX. Noble Phantasm. Hell, A. Gluttony, EX. Lust, EX. Sloth, EX. Greed, EX. Envy, EX. Wrath, EX. I looked at the long screen with wide eyes. Because of my fight against Mephisto, I expected to be rewarded with some great things, but not to this extent. Not only that I now have 96 points and I can choose 5 perks, but I even have new titles and skills that will be very useful in the future, especially the item that I was rewarded with. I immediately took the fairy cloud out of my stock and grabbed it in my left hand. It was a golden cloud the size of a tennis ball and it floated above 1 inch of my hand while golden dust fell from it. I looked at it with interest and thought about what my first wish would be. I wish Medea back to life. I said while I waited for any response from the cloud, but nothing happened. Well, I did not have to raise my hopes, even the Holy Grail could not summon true heroic spirits, and the description of the clause said that only small wishes could be fulfilled. I wish I get the third magic. I said again, but as expected, nothing happened. I could only think that this tool is useless. I hope to learn anti-spirit combat in the highest rank I can get, I said without raising my hopes, but contrary to expectations, the cloud glowed brightly for a second before dropping in size a little while I felt the familiar feeling of learning a new skill. You got an anti-spirit combat B. Name, Anti-Spirit Combat. Rank, B. Description, you learn several techniques to oppose villainous spirits. The mighty incarnations of heroic spirits that are servants aren't an exception. I looked at the fairy cloud with eyes and ribbons before entering it in my inventory. This thing will be very useful later. Now I have to choose skills and noble phantasms. I am a little surprised that I can choose a greater number now, but it seems like this is because I killed a god. Now for the skills, let's start with what I wouldn't choose, the 3 monster skills of course, Magecraft, Territory Creation, Clairvoyant, High-Speed Divine Word, Memory Creation, Self-Replenishment, Illusionism and Divinity. The Niga Pride was gray, but I used observation on it and on the global language and angel core. Niga Pride, a skill dedicated to Mephisto. Upon activation, Mephisto retrieves some skills of his owners in EX rank, new skills are given while some old ones are strengthened, and his presence is raised to God. So it looks like it's a custom skill just for Mephisto, no wonder I can't pick it. Angel Core, the essence of the angel's existence, while it does not increase the capacity of mana, but it gives an infinite battery at this level, while it also gives angel wings and the ability to create intense weapons of light, whereas Mephisto must not possess him in this rank except that Niga Pride made him get it, and while everyone can implant them in them, they will suffer side effects and die at the end of the day. So this is really a simplified form of the third magic that gives infinite mana, but I can't get it because of the after effects? Wow, I saved the world and almost can't get the best skill, though I won't need Arjun again. Global Language, EX the ability to ignore the language barrier and communicate fluently with others. At this level the barrier of both ancient, modern, future and space languages can be crossed. This skill may be useful in the future, but I prefer to have a skill that increases my strength directly. I used observation against Mother Nature and God's immunity. Against Mother Nature, A+++ sever all links with the planet, including removing the concept of death that was given by the planet. This looks very good, especially removing the concept of death, but I do have Avalon which gives me immortality, and as long as my brain is not destroyed I will never die. God's immunity, A+ immunity against any noble phantasms less than EX rank, requires Divinity EX. This is awesome, another skill I can't choose, very cool, although it's nice that I used Rangaminiad or my attacks wouldn't be useless. I have used observation on noble phantasms. Hell, Hell is the reality marble that Mephisto possesses, although it belongs to him but it works as a separate dimension from the physical plane. Of course, he is independently of Mephisto. Gluttony, a belly that is never full, EX the ability to open holes in the world. These holes have a large pulling force, but they cannot stay long because the world fixes them. Lust, mother of all creatures, EX the ability to create a false sea of life. As long as you know the exact composition of a life form, you can reproduce it as long as the appropriate amount of mana is provided. Sloth, the tree that rebuilds the world, EX a tree that can discover the reverse side of the world and withdraw it to the material plane within 9 months. Thus the age of the gods will be reenacted, while the process will be greatly slowed when the tree is destroyed, but the process is not sustainable to stop. Greed, infinite greed, EX it doubles the user's power infinitely, but in exchange for his mental well-being, at the end the fate of the user is the explosion. Envy, a blade that cuts the world, EX an indestructible blade that can cut the fabric of the world itself, and make very fast attacks. Wrath, final annihilation, EX summoning a meteor the size of the moon at a speed of 72 meters per second, with the sole purpose of destroying the planet. This noble phantasm can ignore the precautions of counterforce. I looked at the options shockingly. I can't believe that Mephisto had such very good things, and it seems that the countdown to the age of the gods has begun, but I expect it will take many years. Now, I will exclude gluttony, lust, sloth, and greed, which makes me choose both envy and wrath. It is great to have a strong trump card. As for the skills, I chose Item Construction EX, Battle Continuation EX, and Monstrous Strength EX. First, it would be nice to be able to do better. Second, Mephisto could have survived even as most of his body was destroyed and the rest of his body began to melt due to battle continuation. For the latter, it would represent a very big increase in my strength and durability. Now, I have to go home, my job is done, and now I have saved the world, but I miss the cold walls and atmosphere in the house. After what I went through today, I think I should take some kind of leave. I haven't had a rest before. Now, about how I got out of here, I can float up in the air, but summoning Argus and using it as a bus will be a lot faster. I drew a summon circle over the rock and put the golden fleece in the middle. I was about to start summoning rituals when it lit up blue light behind me. I looked behind me and saw a bright blue ball floating in the air. For some reason, I felt that looking at this light is the best thing that happened to me a while ago. I got to know this light, Aliyashiki, but this was not the reason I felt. Just looking at the light entered calm and safety to my heart. Howdy. When I didn't know what was the best thing, I said, "Are you God?" Wrong. I heard I was a human voice, but it was completely emotional and it was not possible to determine whether the voice was for a male or female. I am the counter force, the collective unconscious of humanity, more commonly known as Alea. Yes, I know, now you killed my joke. I said when I was sighed. I'm supposed to be scared or anxious, but just being near Alea gave me a feeling of safety. I know this is just a fake feeling, but the fact that I didn't have to feel anxiety or fear gives me a great feeling. Congratulations, the human known as Victor Von Doom, your accomplishments are so far that I can no longer ignore you. Ah, this is. I looked to her/him, your mission is to defend humanity, why haven't you interfered? I could not intervene directly against the 6 demonic spirits because they could be considered part of nature, and when the fallen angel became evil of men, I was planning to intervene, but according to my calculations, I decided to think that you could win that possibility of 9.87%. I see, but why are you talking to me directly? Aren't you supposed to have some great abilities like telepathy? Given that you are not part of the collective subconscious of humanity, you are outside of my authority. I ignored the fact that I was just called that I am not a human. Why are you here? Alea spoke, deal. I'm here to offer you a deal. You can become a Grand Counter Guardian and take many advantages, such as going up a higher state of spiritual existence, infinite supplies of mana, registration in the Throne of Heroes, limited access to information of the collective subconscious of humanity, even like a Counter Guardian. You will not have to leave your free will and you can do nothing except when humanity is at risk. I expanded my eyes. This was a very cool deal. I could become a Counter Guardian, a heroic spirit, without having to become a killing machine, and even offering me an endless supply of mana, but I refuse. I categorically said, to become a Counter Guardian means that my soul is stored in the Throne of Heroes so that many copies of me can be created, and I do not want this. The silence lasted for a minute before the collective subconscious of humanity spoke. You can become a living heroic spirit and enjoy the benefits without having to go to the Throne of Heroes, but you will get the benefits of the heroic spirit body while keeping your physical body. Although it is as a true heroic spirit, you will not be limited to the classes system. However, when your body is destroyed, your soul is still transferred to the Throne of Heroes. Well, let's think about it. You said I would be a Grand Counter Guardian. What does this mean? The Grand Counter Guardian is the top of the Counter Guardians, while you are not obligated to do anything, but you are forced to intervene against global threats similar to the fallen angel. What about summoning? The Throne of Heroes is out of time. Let's say I died in the future. Does this mean that I can be summoned now? I felt as though Alea was a little silent. No, as long as you are alive in this world, this will be a paradox that prevents you from being on the Throne of Heroes at the same time. Well, what about my mind? Will you be able to spy on my mind? I asked him while I wanted to know what the bad side is. Because of the contract that makes you get mana supplies from me, we will get a mental channel, but it is only for sending mental messages and it cannot be used to spy on your mind. Well, what are the negative effects? You will acquire the normal weaknesses of the heroic spirit, and gain weakness against weapons and conceptual skills, as you will gain instinct about what is dangerous to humanity, but it is not strong enough to change your own thoughts, and you must still intervene when fighting major threats. This just... Okay, I agree, you're my new boss. After I accepted Alea's deal, several strands of blue light came out of her spiritual body and stuck with my body and began to disperse in blue veins along my body. My transformation process was not painful in any way. If I wanted to describe it really, it was comfortable sort of thing. Being a Counter Guardian is not a really cool thing. If it weren't for the fact that Alea agreed to all of my terms, I wouldn't really have agreed to this. Even I was a little surprised that she said yes to every one of my demands, but I assume she sees that this is the best way to defend humanity and ensure its continuity. Perhaps she thought that she should return me to the system because I was not part of the collective subconscious of humanity, and although she still cannot get into my mind, she believes that being a counter-guardian, even without any duties, means that I am not a threat. She was not really wrong. I was not a threat from the beginning, although after all that happened to me I would not mind killing a few people, but I was not the type to do genocide or destroy the planet, and thanks to the circumstances of the mitigation of Aleya, I have now a living heroic spirit is not present in the throne of heroes. Also, being a counter-guardian is better than being an ordinary heroic spirit. First, being an ordinary heroic spirit has its benefits but can be influenced by your legend like my great-grandfather, Vlad III, or an unreal version of you, like King Arthur, be created. On the other hand, the counter-guardian is not affected by the myths that an element is created, and they also are not called by the Holy Grail at random unless Aleya agrees, just as even when one is called in a particular class it is not really limited in that class. On the third hand, if I refuse, most of all Aleya will let me and may enter Gaia. Gaia is not a nice person because she hates humanity and may be angry because I killed Mephisto who wanted to destroy humanity, and also, I would rather be under the Aleya command than Gaia. Just imagine what if Gaia lost her mind and sent all heroic spirits under her command to eliminate humanity. However, I have undergone many changes, the first of which is that I lost the title, a hero, and I acquired a new one, the counter-guardian, who says that I am at the top of the counter-guardians. My soul also changed to a full heroic spirit, but I did not have a servant essence on my soul or Saint Graph because I was not a servant called in the Chaldea summoning system. I also acquired a contract with Aleya, a contract strong enough to give me a channel to communicate directly with her, and also give me an infinite amount of mana. This last part is a little tricky, since I can't just cover the world with magic energy. Let's say that my mana capacity is 100, and there is a talisman that requires 150 manas. I will be able to use 100 manas spells with unlimited inclusion, but I cannot use anything greater than that. So while my mana capacity is 232,800 units, it will be like my capacity will never be implemented, and it does not mean that the capacity expands to become infinite. The matter is similar to the relationship of the master and the servant. If the master has a greater amount than the servant can dream to spend, then it is as if the server receives infinite mana. Thanks to our contract, I can only ask Aleya about anything I want to know. This is what she calls limited access to the collective subconscious of humanity. I asked her about whether she can summon Medea for me. She refused and told me that this is against the rules. Also, regardless of the regular game screen, I can access my stats as a heroic spirit, which means that I can see the rank of my stats such as strength, endurance, agility, mana, luck, and NP. It seems that Alada know about my skills and NP, but it does not seem she is angry that I have anti-planet noble phantasm, my condition as a heroic spirit used for display only, unlike the game case, and it seems that Aleya does not recognize perks. Strength, agility, and endurance were at C+, C, and C, respectively, while mana and NP were at EX, and luck was, which means that it is less than E, which explains a lot of the reason why everything happens to me. Also, it seems that Aleya was not greedy after all and gave me Noble Phantasm of B rank, Doom armor. It was similar to my armor with small variations in the outward shape, and it does not contain the super reinforcement of Medea, but this does not matter because it can only be used in humans. On the other hand, this armor is a little better than my own armor, as the runes on it are stronger than those in the original armor, although they are the same type, and the strength and durability of Mithril is much stronger, and it has previous reinforcements such as amplifying magic attacks. There are other additions as well, such as that this shield can use the principle of galvanism, which is simply converting magic energy into electrical energy or vice versa, and most importantly, with the addition of protection from ballistics, and more importantly, I can add modifications and make the shield recognize on these modifications as part of it, which means that these modifications will be considered with the armor Noble Phantasm. I was very tired, not physically, but mentally, so I took a week free from any training or study after returning home. This week I discovered something I had not noticed before, or that I was ignoring it. In the past years, I did not have a good relationship with my family, so I isolated myself from everyone in my studies, training, and travel around the world. I didn't care about anyone in my family, and the only reason I'm really around them is that they are my biological family. I still remember when my mom wanted to send me on trial, the only person I really care about was my twin sister, Valeria Rachel von Doom. When thinking about it carefully, I barely talked to her for years. I was always very busy, and now when I notice her, the cheerful girl who worried about me is gone a long time ago. My sister has become a very cold and arrogant girl. In the conference room in the clock tower, there was a large round table around chairs enough to hold tens of people. Of course, most of these seats were currently full, regardless of a few seats. There were several important people in the supernatural world from all sides of the world. Only a few people did not attend this meeting. The first is the director of Mage Association, the person of the highest position in the clock tower and one of the disciples of Solomon. The director has been the same person for the 2,000 years since the founding of the association, and because of this is thought to be something more than human. The second is Kistjer Zelrich Schweinorg, is one of 5 living magicians capable of true magic beyond modern science or magecraft. He has numerous nicknames, including Zelrich the Wizard Marshal. He has control over the second magic, Kaleidoscope, which allows for the operation of parallel worlds. The third person is Aoko Aozaki, the 5th magician who has control of the 5th magic and time travel operations. Not only that she did not come, it is only that she was not invited. Instead her older sister Toko Aozaki was here. There was also Bartholomew Lorelei, the supreme mage of modern era and deputy director of the Mage Association. It was she who presided over this meeting and personally sent out invitations to all present. There were also the 12 lords of the clock tower, Toko Aozaki, many interested persons from both the Temple of Atlas and the Roving Sea, and many Eastern and Western thaumaturgy schools, so that the church sent its own representative. This meeting was organized to discuss a global event that occurred several days ago, more specifically, 6 days ago. Hello, and thank you for accepting all of my invitation. Lorelei stood up and said in a cool expression, "My name is Bartholomew Lorelei, and I'm the one who invite you. You can call me Ms. Bartholomew. I'm the deputy director of the Mage Association, and I'm the one who invited you all." Everyone remained silent. Bartholomew was a very well-known person in the Magus community. Her introduction to herself was just a problematic, unimportant measure in order to give a starting point for the meeting. Now, I hope that we temporarily leave our past differences in order to discuss more important issues. Nearly 147 hours from now, all magical energy monitors in all our branches have discovered the emergence of a high level of magical energy in the North Atlantic, more specifically on an island. Belle-Île is an island in the Gulf of Gasconia. Bartholomew grabbed a rare magic tool used between top levels to display events previously recorded as realistic 3D projections, after turning them on and pushing them in the middle of the table. The tool started showing a recording of a creature with a black robe and antlers above his head fighting against a knight with a metal armor embossed in runes with a spear. As the device continued to display the recording, Bartholomew Lorelei began to speak again. "We believe that the source of magical energy is this creature, whom we discovered from their conversation that its name is Mephisto." "Sorry." A member of the China Magus organization spoke. "Before we get to this superficial information, I think you should give us information about the identity of these two people too." A representative of Magus Middle East said, "Well, I want to know this too. I am more interested because there is such a creature in this world." "For this, I think the Wandering Sea representative will lead the conversation now," Bartholomew said before sitting down. "Hi." A man with long red hair stood with a smile on his face, but it seemed to be wrong with him. "I am Kuru Adeshino. I am not a member of the Wandering Sea, but I was appointed to represent them among you, and also, at that time I was lucky to be in Quiberon. When I discovered magical energy, I sent my mate to explore, and I was able to discover a few things, in addition to the information I received from the Wandering Sea." "I know you, you are Dr. Heartless," the Middle East representative said aggressively in his voice. "My reputation seems to precede me. I am surprised that someone in your center knows me," Kuru said with a smile. "You killed my son," the Middle East representative said with a shout-like tone as he stood up. "Please lower your voice." Bartholomew suddenly interfered. The Middle East representative closed his eyes to calm himself and sat again. "In any case, it seems that this creature called Mephisto is what is called evil of men, and it is also a divine spirit in its initial form. As for the armored knight, it is apparently just a human being, and it is not known how he could fighting against this monster. And how can a divine spirit exist in this world?" a representative of the Japanese Imperial Army asked. "According to my information, it seems that he became a divine spirit not long ago, so he is in this world without any taxes." "I see," said the representative of China. "Do you not have any information on this knight? Or are you hiding information from us?" Asterisk cough cough asterisk, church representative, Kyrie Kotomine, coughed to gain attention. "The church has already gathered some information about it," said Kyrie Kotomine while throwing a dossier toward Bartholomew Lorelei. "According to our intelligence, we don't have any real information about his identity, as he disguises the face of Alex Sheen, who is an American civilian. However, the first piece of information about him is that he was the one who killed the dragon who destroyed Tajikja, before he killed New York City Reaper." and hunting a phantasm beast in South America, was present in Greece, and it seems that whoever ended the spread of the curse, regardless of this information, we do not know anything. So we don't even know his name? Atlas representative asked. No, Kirai said with his strange smile, but because his armor is like a skeleton, we gave him a rank in red, with the code name, Skeletron. I tried to talk to my sister several times, but she always used to stop herself from me on the pretext that she is very busy, and the thing that annoys me is that she is always busy, and when she is not, she says only any excuse she finds in her mind. I was not the ideal family man, my family was cruel and cold and took care of its own interests, and I did not care about them because of this. Some people may think it is my fault and that I should not lose hope in my family, but they were adults who were brought up from their youngness to be tough and cold. Even I became like them at some point. But seeing my twin that I remember was a warm and kind turns to this makes me feel guilty because I wasn't there when she needed me. I also put all my statistical points in the spirit statistic, firstly because it is the only option that is not really wasted because it does not only increase the capacity of my prana, and secondly because when I turn into a divine spirit I will need a lot of mana in order to embody myself in the world if I do not have physical object at that time, and because Alea cannot receive divine spirits like the counter guardian. Also, I chose new perks, such as well-fed, which I discovered increases my regeneration without depleting my prana, unlike Avalon, which requires an amount of prana. It was a reason to deplete my mana against Mephisto, after boring something that did not treat a slightly damaged heart and but parts of an object were completely cut off repeatedly. Second, the 3 levels of who need oxygen. The first level gave me the ability to breathe under the surface of the water for a certain period, while the second level gave me the ability to breathe in space for a certain period, while the third level increased this period further. Also, the concealment that makes discovering the true amount of my magic energy is very difficult. While I had a ring that did this before, but I don't think it can hide my energy if I was close to a large magic energy monitor. With the current amount of prana of 424,800 units of magical energy, I have 20% of the energy that the Holy Grail collects in 60 years. In my fight against Mephisto, I could have made a big explosion similar to a nuclear explosion, but that would be useless. In modern and ancient thaumaturgy theory, while most spells like Gandra and Rain of Light amplify their destructive power with the increase in prana, the infusion of a large number in one talisman causes instability and dispersion, so I did not try to send a gunner shot filled with all my energy toward Mephisto, because she wouldn't reach him anyway. While racist spells such as the Sea of Flame and the Lightning Spear will not be activated if you try to put more quantity than they require. So noble phantasms like Rangaminiad and Excalibur are very precious and powerful, because pumping a greater amount of prana into them actually means a much greater dispensational force, and this is one of the many reasons why I could defeat Mephisto, because I can put a large amount of prana to double its strength. Of course, if I try to put all my magic power into it, Rangaminiad will reject it because it will not do any further increase on it, until divine constructions have limits. As my attempts to get close to Valeria failed, I began to find things to occupy myself with. In the following days, I began to test the boundaries of my fourth wall. Since he could prevent Alea from reading my mind, it seemed that the complete immunity in the description was not to attract buyers, and I discovered somewhat interesting things. Like the fact that while I possess immunity from innate abilities such as mind reading and telepathy and mental attacks including magecraft of the type of mental interference, the capabilities of mystic eyes can cross the fourth wall, and also things like the master and servant contract that was between me and between Media, or Alea contract, is not counted as a mental attack because it is a physical charm that works by removing a message from my mind and sending it through the mental channel. However, I also started conducting studies and tests on the bodies of dragons that I own. Of course I was doing this secretly. By spending a long time and spending some resources, I was able to create a separate space in the place of my own workshop. The space was like my workshop, but when someone tries to enter my workshop, he will not enter the space that I did, but to the workshop that I did not use. I spent many hours studying the dragons, and I could not know the side effects and eradicate them until after about 3 weeks. After all, these dragons are demonic dragons that are skillfully enhanced by mad enhancement. I discovered that the best commodity I possess is the original Wrath Corpse, while the other dragons are just imitations that can only act as a substitute, so I used resources from Wrath Corpse to make doses to gradually strengthen my body, while ate his magical heart similarly to the Sigurd legend. So day after day, aside from strengthening my body, my magic circuits were changed to Dragon Core circuits similar to Arturia Pendragon, while my own heart was transformed into a Mana Core reactor because of my eating of Wrath's heart, and I also acquired the Dragon Breath that gives me the ability to purple shooting fire has the effect of continuous burning and corrosion, all under my new skill, Dragon Kind Modification. I also started building a mental library that contained all the books I have read in my life including spells, medicine, technology, modern magecraft, and magecraft of Age of Gods by taking advantage of the skill that I acquired by killing gluttony, hypothetical inference. Currently, I was inside the library and sat in the seat opposite the seat my twin sister, Valeria Rachel von Doom, was sitting in, reading a book about formal craft. "Hello, Valeria," I told her with a smile. "Victor," said she while she didn't raise her head to look at me. "I just want to say, what do you think about spending some time together like a brother and sister?" She looked at me while smiling sarcastically. "We? Brother and sister? Only the fact that we were born from the same father and mother does not make us a brother and sister, Victor, and hearing these words coming from you is very funny." "I'm sorry for that, Valeria, because I was a bad brother, just give me a chance to fix it." "You were not a bad brother, Victor, you were not a brother at all. I remember we were close in our childhood but we haven't talked for years. Bad brother has spoken to his sister at least several times a day, when you left me and left the family, so all my mom and uncle's expectations fell on me," she said while she closed the book. "Now if you excuse me, I'm busy." She stood to leave. Seeing this, I immediately grabbed her hand. "Please, I promise I will not spoil it if you give me another chance. Don't you realize the meaning of my words? I don't need you anymore," she said coldly and tried to pull her hand, but I continued to hold her tightly. "Leave me, Victor, or else I will cast a spell on your face. You can do this as long as you give me a chance to fix things with you," I told her while I tightened my grip. She looked at me for a long time before she sighed. "Okay, but I don't want you to talk to me again if you can't correct it. It has been 2 full years since I defeated Mephisto and I have never been reunited with my sister. During this period, no significant events have occurred or particularly worthy of mention. Apart from that, I used my knowledge in the category of zoology and physical modification to enhance my Giganotosaurus in magic ways. Basically, I modified and greatly enhanced it with the bodies of the dragon I own, as I initially used to continuously and moderately inject the blood of the dragons over the long months before I made him eat dragon meat as lunch. This process was slow and lasted for a whole year, but I think it was worth the time spent. The next addition was that I replaced his heart with the heart of one of the dragons before I made him eat the rest. And the final addition is that I engraved several runes to increase speed, durability, and strength in his body, but I did not suffice to this extent and took advantage of my item construction EX to transform my Giganotosaurus soul into a guardian soul, by merging a human soul with his soul. After making sure that I wiped all memories of the human soul, of course I added some changes, such as giving him a saint graph, a spiritual essence that stores all his information and experiences and gives him the ability to act as a servant. Because of this, his physical body was transformed into a body made of ether and did not need an object to sleep like Calcus dragon. The end result was very satisfactory. Previously Giganotosaurus was just an ordinary dinosaur, but now with all the modifications I made on it, it can be considered a guardian spirit and servant at the same time, with the possibility of evolving in the future into a holy spirit, which means that I will have a beneficial ally and strong in the future. And since it can be considered as a servant, I can see his stats and skills, and I have to work as an anchor for him in this world. There are also some bad effects, such as that Giganotosaurus no longer counted part of the game, and since he became the spirit of the guardian, he is a completely new person without any memories, with the acquisition of wisdom and the level of human intelligence, and without the game I doubted that it would not be loyal to me. It seems that a female dinosaur, not a male, but it seems unnecessary to be complained about. As for the first problem, both servants and the guardian spirits could switch between the spiritual and ether body, so there was no problem with this. However, I had to choose a name for it, which I named Psyche. True name, Psyche. Type, guardian spirit. Class, non-classed. Parameter: Strength, B+. Endurance, B+++. Agility, B. Mana, E++. Luck, D. NP. Class skills: Independent action, C. Mad enhancement, E. Personal skills: Animalistic logic, B. Battle continuation, B. Magic resistance, A. NP. Its class was unclassified, and it is understandable because I did not use any classes like the Holy Grail, and because guardian spirits were not heroic or divine spirits, which means that they were not normally qualified for any class unless the classes was used on purpose. Of course, any guardian spirit could not be converted to a servant. I could only do that by creating a saint graph, which I could have done because the item construction is at EX level. While the reason she didn't own ANP was because I didn't create any artificial noble phantasm, and I didn't give her anything like Gibid, and unlike Mephisto, I didn't use something people believed like sins from Christianity to create something like Phantom. But, since I imitated the Chaldea summon system, this of course means that I also imitated the Ascension system, which means that I can strengthen Psyche 4 times, which increases its strength, so even if it does not develop into a Holy Spirit, it will still become stronger than it is now. Also, after all the modifications to it, regardless of its acquisition of intelligence, its size has not changed at all, and what has changed is that the color of its skin has become black. Regardless of this, I spent some time with my sister. It was strange at first because none of us knew where to start, but I started telling her stories about my travel around the world. I did not tell her anything about Mephisto or sins. I told her about the Holy Grail War, and about how I have been hunting phantasm species for a period of my life, then on my experiences and my experience in the clock tower. Of course I did not tell her anything about the magecraft of the Age of the Gods, or that I memorized almost all the books in the clock tower, or anything about my dinosaur or noble phantasms, but I told her the truth. And she, in turn, told me how she had killed the first person in the 13th year of her life, and how she had to survive in the woods alone for 2 whole months, and that she had to go to a war zone at the age of 14 and collect the bodies of soldiers. She told me that she would go to the clock tower this year. She was more interested in witchcraft and Fermaltaft than her interest in necromancy. While all other family members are pure necromancers, I decided to help my sister in her school course, and while she would be a student in the clock tower, I decided I would work as an enforcer, because I was not the person who loves to lazy and stay idle, because I will be able to meet my sister more, and also work as an enforcer may gain me some experience, and perhaps even a suitable cover. Also, working as an enforcer would be a good way to learn about other mage organizations, and to keep an eye on timeline. In the last year of my work as enforcer, I was assigned to many tasks such as hunting Magus who stole his family's secrets before escaping, or killing someone who wanted to inform the public about the existence of the Magus world, including murder investigation tasks such as if a family head was killed. I've even been on a team mission with Bazette Frogamacrimitz and many other mages under the leadership of Bartholomei Lorelei to annihilate a village that has been completely converted to ghouls, the lowest ranking of vampires, by someone who defected from the association for nearly 10 years, who seems to have spent those 10 years as a ghoul before he became dead apostle and therefore has not yet appeared. However, I could finally see Bartholomei Lorelei, the legendary queen of the Clock Tower and the Magus Association, and I was able to rate her overall capabilities. In magecraft she is equal to me, which means that her magecraft is as strong as true magic, while I am still excelling because of the huge prana and high-speed divine words, magecraft of Age of Gods, my many combat skills, perks, and noble phantasms, and my superhuman physical capabilities, while her body appears to have E rank, which is the peak of an ordinary human. Of course she can still use reinforcement magecraft. I am sure that with her abilities and level of fame, she is qualified to become a heroic spirit, perhaps from the type of anti-hero like me, since we are not the pure heroes. We have done bad things, or we are simply looking for revenge, or we simply do not care if another person die in front of UD as long as we weren't the cause. While my sister went to formal craft class at the age of 18, this was the normal age to enroll in a real class to study, because most people study 5 years in general studies. My sister studied this and mastered the family's magecraft at home, so she saved some time in her life by not losing it in general studies. Between every mission and mission, I used to spend a lot of my time with her and her new friends. While it seems that Waver Velvet bought the modern magecraft theory section of the Archibald family, while he did not become Lord Elmeloy too, but he is still a famous second-class professor. While Gray appears to have become his student on this timeline as well, and she still wears a hood to hide her face because Waver suffers from post-traumatic stress disorder. I had tried to have a conversation with him in the past, but it seemed that he was uncomfortable. He seemed to be suffering from nausea when exposed to anything that could be mentioned in relation to a servant or the Holy Grail. Waver was a cool person, but I could not help but think that he was pathetic. This was the difference between us. While we both lost someone we considered dear to us, but I am trying to restore it, while he is terrified even of the idea of the Holy Grail. Also, this year Psyche underwent 2 stages of ascension. With each stage her parameters were slightly enhanced and her body became more dynamic and suitable for combat, while some of its skills were strengthened. In the anime, there was no ascension system because, unlike the game, the servants do not gain EXP from killing creatures and the servants do not drop items upon their death, so my ascension system is completely different, and it works by accumulating experience and increasing servant loyalty to the master, and absorbing data from evil spirits it helps. This is the so-called level, while the ascension process is done only with the approval of the master. All this is possible because, unlike the normal spiritual essence of servants and heroic spirits, the Saint Graph is like the spiritual foundation, information store, experiments, and CPU. For this reason in the game even when the servant dies it does not disappear. By combining this with the master and servant contract system, including the combat and trial system, I can create a level system. Of course, The progress of heroic spirits at levels is very slow because they are really experienced and skillful fighters, but they can still pass through Ascension, although unskilled or Lilith servants do not face much difficulty in this. I also invented several new offensive spells that use pure prana or lightning, and invented theory and methods to reduce the risks of lightning magecraft in order to gain influence in the Magus Society and Association, and while I am still Enforcer, I also gained the nickname Philosopher by the Association, and I became a very well-known person and was called a genius because my many contributions are more than the majority of Magus can make at their lifetime, and I have also gained some influence in the Association. One of my own spells that I did not hand over to the Association is called the Illusion Barrier. I did not have a reality marble, and made an independent world takes a long time, so I came to the concept of the Illusion Barrier, and it is a temporary independent world that can be called a fake reality marble. Making it doesn't requires a large amount of mana, and anyone can make it immediately as long as he knows the formula of the spell and as long as he has enough experience in making independent worlds, which means that only me or Medea or people like Mephisto and Goetia can do this. Just as the Illusion Barrier, it does not require any mana after its creation and will continue as long as its maker is inside it, because the maker works like a ship for this artificial dimension. The space inside is similar to the region in the real world without any ordinary humans, just as the corrective motives of the world cannot influence him or the creatures within him because he it is not considered within the authority of Gaia, which means that creatures such as servants will not need to place huge taxes on the master because Gaia cannot attempt to remove the servant within the barrier. Also, I secured the Greater Holy Grail in the cave under the Ryudo Temple on Mount Inzo. I initially wanted only to make small adjustments. I did not plan to do anything, but it seemed Alea, my boss, wanted me to prove my strength by destroying a potential beast, and the game seems to recognize its demand as a mission. New main mission, Potential Evil. Description: in the Third Holy Grail War of the 1930s, Ngramenu, the source of all evil in the world, was summoned, but was defeated early, but his soul used the Grail as a womb in order to transform it into the source of all evil in the world. Due to the request of your current boss, Aliyashiki, you have to destroy Ngramenu. You can do that by destroying the Greater Grail, but you still have benefit from it. Subject: summon Ngramenu, the source of all evil, and evil of men, and kill him. Reward: 15.000.000 EXP. Punishment: the possible annihilation of humanity. Despite my willingness to confront Ngramenu, all the evils of the world, I still have to do a few things before that, such as brainwashing the residents of the Ryudo Temple and getting them to leave. This was not really challenging, as I could have used mental overlap and hypnosis to control the entire population similar to what I and Medea had done in the previous Holy Grail War, and they made them all leave the mountain towards Fuyuki. I also got to know Suchira Kazuki, but I wasn't really interested in him. The only reason he was able to defeat Arturia Pendragon in the Fifth Holy Grail War was because of Medea's extraordinary boost and because Saber was not using Excalibur. Of course his fighting style played an important role, but that's it. He didn't have any kind of martial arts, magecraft, or mystic codes that I might be interested in. After doing all this, I began the ritual summoning of all evil in the world, Ngramenu, although I call these rituals summonin, but the correct meaning is forced release, because what I will do is very similar to how a doctor aborts a child from the belly of a woman. Although Ngramenu is a heroic spirit registered to the throne of heroes, after being summoned in the Third Holy Grail War and his death, the Holy Grail recognized the villagers' wishes as wish and began turning Ngramenu into the embodiment of all evil in the world. But to do with this, the Ngramenu became the baby of the Holy Grail, and it can no longer be called normally. Even Ngramenu himself cannot go out before another person's wish is granted, so that the essence of the Holy Grail Justice Lizrich von Einsburn cannot drive him out. That is why I am excluding him exclusively. With the help of my knowledge in spiritual summoning and both the Book of Vesta and the Dark Grail, I did successfully summon Ngramenu. In front of the Greater Grail, Ngramenu began to form. Its size resembled the Greater Grail, while it appeared to be a red arachnoid with multiple eyes and an inverted shape trapped inside a transparent red cocoon. Ngramenu unleashed a noisy moan as if he woke up from a deep slumber just now and stretched his hands to the side, tearing the cocoon that was holding him, while at the same time changing his shape to a much smaller version, to my own shape, with the difference being that Ngramenu possesses black skin and white hair. Seeing this, it was strange to see someone else who has your shape, but I was not surprised or shocked because even as a heroic spirit he did not possess a form of his own, and as an entity that represents the evil of the world, I do not expect that he will get a shape. I used each of the opponent's strength and medium awareness of the enemies in order to measure his strength. True name, Ngramenu. Type, Evil of Men. Source, Zoroastrianism. Region, Ancient Persia. Alignment, Chaotic Evil. Hidden attribute, Beast. Parameter. Strength, C++. Endurance, A. Agility, A+++. Mana, EX. Luck, E+. NP, X. Class skills. Authority of beasts, C. Independent manifestation, C. Avenger, A. Memory correction, A. Personal skills. Eternal regeneration, A+++. Torich, left Fang grinder, A. Zarek, right Fang grinder, A. Annihilation wish, A. The eye of the mind, false, C. Divinity, E. NP. Engra Menu, all the world's evil, EX. Vergavesta, D. I looked at his stats and found that just as I expected, while his power was greatly enhanced after he became evil of men, but he is still weaker than other beasts because he was the weakest heroic spirit before that. Now, perhaps he can be compared to a first-class server. Victor Von Doom. Engra Menu looked at me with 20 meters between us. So you decided to make me your next target? I am not gay, Angry Matthew, I told him with a sarcastic smile, and I'm here to kill you. Angry Matthew, I love this name, he said while Torich and Zarek appeared in his hands. I took out Gibid and started fighting. While I was fighting defensively by avoiding and intercepting his attacks, he was targeting my vital areas with deadly attacks. He jumped several meters and threw Torich and Zarek as projectiles in my direction, while their speed was faster than the speed of tossing Gilgamesh's weapons from the Babylon Gate, but I could calculate their path while my body instinctively responded and avoided them by jumping in the air and bend my body in a way that my body passes between Zarek and Torich. When the blades passed by me several meters away, they changed their course and again turned toward me, but their number doubled to 4 separate blades. Argos. I created a magic wall to stop the Engra Menu blades. No matter how fast or how tough they are, I don't think they can penetrate Argos, a protective spell that has the toughness of Heracles' skin. While Torich's and Zarek's couldn't penetrate Argos, Engra Menu approached me from the side with his super speed and tried to punch me, but before he could touch me, I used Tropha to teleport behind him, grabbed him from his shoulders and threw him in the opposite direction of the Greater Grail, the entrance to the cave. I don't want Justice Lizrich von Einsburn to be hurt by our fight, it will be mean, and I don't want her to refuse to fulfill my wish after I win the Holy Grail War. When Engra Menu was thrown out of the cup, I used Tropha to teleport behind his flying body and kicked it enough to throw it several tens of meters above the ground. I used Tropha again to teleport above it in the sky and punched it with both fists, causing it to be thrown towards the earth with high momentum and speed. Because Aleia gives me infinite magical energy, which is only possible through the third magic, I could currently use the true magic related to teleportation freely without worrying about depleting prana. And while teleportation for short distances does not cause any problem, teleportation FOT medium distances can cause nausea and headache, and in media notes it was said that it is unhealthy to open the eyes when teleportation for long distances. I waited until he stood up, and while he had multiple injuries and scratches, they were quickly healed. Perhaps this is one of his abilities as all worlds evil. It seems you are not as strong as you should be, Angry Matthew, I said to him. Oh Victor, you didn't see me in my weakest state, he said, with a sarcastic smile, because his shape looked like me, even his smile resembled me. Hey, really? Can you be weaker? I told him I was surprised in a fake way. Yes, of course, this is one of the things that I was proud of before, I am the weakest heroic spirit in existence. He said while he proudly punched his chest. I was about to say something again, but Zarek's and Torich's, who now numbered 8, while 2 of them stopped in the hand of Engra Menu but the remaining 6 turned towards me, I used Argos to stop them, and after they couldn't break through the barrier they faded away in particles of red light. Despite my willingness to confront Engra Menu, all the evils of the world, I still have to do a few things before that, such as brainwashing the residents of the Ryudo Temple and getting them to leave. This was not really challenging, as I could have used mental overlap and hypnosis to control the entire population similar to what I and Medea had done in the previous Holy Grail War, and they made them all leave the mountain towards Fuyuki. I also got to know Suchira Kazuki, but I wasn't really interested in him. The only reason he was able to defeat Arturia Pendragon in the 5th Holy Grail War was because of Medea's extraordinary boost and because Saber was not using Excalibur. Of course his fighting style played an important role, but that's it. He didn't have any kind of martial arts, magecraft, or mystic codes that I might be interested in. After doing all this, I began the ritual summoning of all evil in the world, Engra Menu, although I call these rituals summonin, but the correct meaning is forced release, because what I will do is very similar to how a doctor aborts a child from the belly of a woman. Although Ngramenu is a heroic spirit registered to the throne of heroes, after being summoned in the Third Holy Grail War and his death, the Holy Grail recognized the villagers' wishes as wish and began turning Ngramenu into the embodiment of all evil in the world. But to do with this, the Ngramenu became the baby of the Holy Grail, and it can no longer be called normally. Even Ngramenu himself cannot go out before another person's wish is granted, so that the essence of the Holy Grail Justice Lizrich von Einsburn cannot drive him out. That is why I am excluding him exclusively. With the help of my knowledge in spiritual summoning and both the Book of Vesta and the Dark Grail, I did successfully summon Ngramenu. In front of the Greater Grail Ngramenu began to form. Its size resembled the Greater Grail, while it appeared to be a red arachnoid with multiple eyes and an inverted shape trapped inside a transparent red cocoon. Ngramenu unleashed a noisy moan as if he woke up from a deep slumber just now and stretched his hands to the side, tearing the cocoon that was holding him, while at the same time changing his shape to a much smaller version, to my own shape, with the difference being that Ngramenu possesses black skin and white hair. Seeing this, it was strange to see someone else who has your shape, but I was not surprised or shocked because even as a heroic spirit he did not possess a form of his own, and as an entity that represents the evil of the world, I do not expect that he will get a shape. I used each of the opponent's strength and medium awareness of the enemies in order to measure his strength. True name, Ngramenu. Type, Evil of Men. Source, Zoroastrianism. Region, Ancient Persia. Alignment, Chaotic Evil. Hidden attribute, Beast. Parameter. Strength, C++. Endurance, A. Agility, A+++. Mana, EX. Luck, E+. NP, X. Class skills. Authority of Beasts, C. Independent Manifestation, C. Avenger, A. Memory Correction, A. Personal skills. Eternal Regeneration, A+++. Torich, Left Fang Grinder, A. Zarek, Right Fang Grinder, A. Annihilation Wish, A. The Eye of the Mind, False, C. Divinity, E. NP. Ngramenu, All the World's Evil, EX. Vergavesta, D. I looked at his stats and found that just as I expected, while his power was greatly enhanced after he became Evil of Men, but he is still weaker than other beasts because he was the weakest heroic spirit before that. Now, perhaps he can be compared to a first-class server. Victor Von Doom. Ngramenu looked at me with 20 meters between us. So you decided to make me your next target? I am not gay, Angry Matthew, I told him with a sarcastic smile, and I'm here to kill you. Angry Matthew, I love this name, he said while Torich and Zarek appeared in his hands. I took out Gibid and started fighting. While I was fighting defensively by avoiding and intercepting his attacks, he was targeting my vital areas with deadly attacks. He jumped several meters and threw Torich and Zarek as projectiles in my direction, while their speed was faster than the speed of tossing Gilgamesh's weapons from the Babylon Gate, but I could calculate their path while my body instinctively responded and avoided them by jumping in the air and bend my body in a way that my body passes between Zarek and Torich. When the blades passed by me several meters away, they changed their course and again turned toward me, but their number doubled to 4 separate blades. Argos. I created a magic wall to stop the Ngramenu blades. No matter how fast or how tough they are, I don't think they can penetrate Argos, a protective spell that has the toughness of Heracles' skin. While Torich's and Zarek's couldn't penetrate Argos, Ngramenu approached me from the side with his super speed and tried to punch me, but before he could touch me, I used Tropha to teleport behind him, grabbed him from his shoulders and threw him in the opposite direction of the Greater Grail, the entrance to the cave. I don't want Justice Lizrich von Einsburn to be hurt by our fight, it will be mean, and I don't want her to refuse to fulfill my wish after I win the Holy Grail War. When Ngramenu was thrown out of the cup, I used Tropha to teleport behind his flying body and kicked it enough to throw it several tens of meters above the ground. I used Tropha again to teleport above it in the sky and punched it with both fists, causing it to be thrown towards the earth with high momentum and speed. Because Aleia gives me infinite magical energy, which is only possible through the third magic, I could currently use the true magic related to teleportation freely without worrying about depleting prana. And while teleportation for short distances does not cause any problem, teleportation FOT medium distances can cause nausea and headache, and in media notes it was said that it is unhealthy to open the eyes when teleportation for long distances. I waited until he stood up, and while he had multiple injuries and scratches, they were quickly healed. Perhaps this is one of his abilities as all world's evil. It seems you are not as strong as you should be, Angry Matthew, I said to him. Oh Victor, you didn't see me in my weakest state, he said, with a sarcastic smile, because his shape looked like me, even his smile resembled me. Hey, really? Can you be weaker? I told him I was surprised in a fake way. Yes, of course, this is one of the things that I was proud of before, I am the weakest heroic spirit in existence. He said while he proudly punched his chest. I was about to say something again, but Xerix and Toriches, who now numbered 8, while 2 of them stopped in the hand of Ingramenu but the remaining 6 turned towards me, I used Argos to stop them, and after they couldn't break through the barrier they faded away in particles of red light. I immediately removed Gibid from my inventory again and engaged in a close fight with him. After a while, I found a hole in his style and tried to hit his neck with Gibid, but he used Torich and Xeric to push my spear up, but I inserted my spear into my inventory. I grabbed Xeric and Torich and pulled them out of his hands, my hands moved quickly and I cut his chest in an X shape. Virga Vesta. Ingramenu said after going back, I felt the pain as if my chest was also cut off, but magic resistance A denied this effect in a few seconds. Really angry Matthew? It's stupid to try to use a simple curse to share damage against me, I said to him in a neutral way. Fortunately my magical resistance is in grade A because of my dragon core. You're right, he said while nodding, I didn't want to use this, but it seems you have to face my special attack. You own a special attack? I told him while I held my head to the side. That's right, here it is. My special attack called Escape. He said as he turned to the opposite side of me and started running at full speed. My eyes expanded in shock. I did not expect him to escape, especially since he is a beast now, but I think it does not matter if he is a beast or a heroic spirit. It seems that the weakest heroic spirit, or now, the weakest evil of men, has decided to escape. Alea, it seems that our beast has decided to run away with his tail between his legs. I chased after him and did not wait for Alea's answer. I was trying to get close to him, but he was moving away gradually because his speed was higher than the speed. When seeing that he would run away, which I don't want because I want to please my boss, I immediately threw Rain of Light, Makia Hikesha Gria continuously for 10 seconds on least before stopping. When the smoke due to my attack cleared, Ingramenu was injured and mowed like a cockroach. It was not comforting that he looked exactly like me. Before I could say anything Ingramenu said, Ingramenu, all the world's evil. His whole body turned into black clay and began to multiply and grow at an enormous speed. Seeing this I retreated in order not to touch me this clay, but I stopped because of a piece of orders that Alea sent me. I should not let this clay continue to expand under any case. I directed my hand to the sky and used my magic energy, which expanded rapidly and surrounded the area in a circle with a diameter of 300 meters. My magic energy analyzed everything that passed through it and I used this information to build a fake reality marble separate from the ordinary world, while by inserting the black clay into it with me too, I've created an illusion barrier. And while I prevented the black clay from reaching the outside world, I also prevented myself from the possibility of escaping from it as well, and it seemed that the black clay acquired intelligence of some kind and approached me with great speed and surrounded me. It seems as if the space around it has been distorted for the sake to give it that speed, then sucked inside the mud. I lost consciousness for a while, but when I woke up again I was on the street. I was 9 years ago when Medea died. I tried to use my magic energy and summon my noble phantasms, but I couldn't interact with anything or a person. These abilities are not stolen from me. I was currently in a dream world. It was not difficult to know this because the inverted moon of the heavens is in the sky. Without being able to do anything, I just watched, and over, I watched as Gilgamesh kills Medea. Over and over, she get killed in a different way, and with each time it becomes more brutal and bloody the ways she dies. While I know that this is just an illusion, it was affecting me, especially when these methods began to become more brutal, and I could only wonder if this was the way she died. Isn't this terrible, Victor? I heard a female voice behind me. I just turned around to find it a Medea. No, it's Ingramenu taking the form of Medea. Angry Matthew, you don't think you can influence me like this, do you? No, he said to me as he approached me. Victor, I am here to give you one last chance. As long as you give up trying to kill me, I will be happy to fulfill your wish, she said to me while she touched my face. Take it softly with her hand. I put my hand on her hand and closed my eyes while feeling her hand feeling. This was familiar, my wish. I am good in reading feelings, Victor, and I have been watching you for a long time. I can summon Medea for you, real, not fake like me. I ignored his words for a moment. It is a great offer, but I have a job to do, a war to win, someone to bring back to life, a sister to return to, and someone to take revenge on, and also, a boss I don't want to upset. On the other hand, in order to fulfill my wish I must let him go back into the Grail, and while I want Medea to return as soon as possible, Ingramenu fulfills aspirations in tortuous ways, and also, I am not stupid, because that will cause the end of the world, the end of humanity. I want you to know something. What? she said. While you were making me watch Medea die time and time again, I was able to communicate with a small part of my prana. His eyes expanded for a moment, but before he could do anything, I communicated with my prana through a high-speed divine world in order to launch a flame spell with the purpose of burning the black mud that surrounds my real body. After doing this I woke up and it seemed that the black clay had spat me out. I used Medea's spell to fly and I saw that the mud had covered half of the illusion barrier. If it continued to expand, it could cross the illusion barrier due to the attribute of space. I activate my mystic eyes of death perception in order to discover the lines of the death of the black mud, and then I directed Envy, a blade that cuts the world. I cut several death lines in one attack. It was impossible to resist the force of the Envy, not because of its speed or strength, but because it ignored all capabilities and defenses because of its cutting force that cuts the world itself. I used Envy to cut all the death lines connected to the black mud that I could see, and after doing so I gathered the remains of the black mud and formed Ngramenu, which is still using my shape. I cancelled Envy, took out Rangaminiad and stood 70 meters from Ngramenu, who was looking at me with a mixture of anger and fear. Why? I was ready to give you a wish. Why did you refuse? The truth. Because you took the form of Medea, and because I'm not stupid, but there is one last reason. Do you want to know? I interrupted him quickly. What? He said with questions, while still angry. Alea sends her regards. I told him I coolly and, before he answered, I made my move, Rangaminiad. If you like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you later, bye bye.